Injuries always play a role in fantasy football, just like on the field, but it's how you change your roster accordingly that determines whether you're the league doormat right from the get-go. Hey, how are you, folks? Jason Horowitz with you on the newly named Move Makers, formerly Roster Trends. It's the guys that are up and down the waiver wires, those to look out for. And for more, we bring in the man who's looking out for your team, and that'd be senior fantasy writer Jamey Eisenberg down in Miami. And Jamey, let's kick this off with the team that probably took the worst of the injuries as far as production goes. Eli Manning goes down, differing reports as far as how long he'll be out. Brandon Jacobs sprained MCL, 3 to 5 weeks. But they didn't lose anyone on the offensive line. So you enter Derrick Ward as the starting running back. Is he good enough to start on your fantasy roster?
No, he's not good enough to start on your fantasy roster. I mean, we were concerned about Brandon Jacobs coming into the year because of his size, taking hits, and we saw what happened, getting hurt in the first week, out for 3 to 5 weeks. And now you're looking at Derrick Ward, who had a decent game in replace of him. But that Dallas defense really isn't that great, and I think you'll see Derrick Ward, with teams focusing on him. He's a little back. Should do well catching the ball in the backfield, but not a guy you want to start at this point. A guy that could be a good reserve for you, especially if you had Brandon Jacobs and you're looking to add some depth on your roster. Pick him up now, but don't start him this week.
Well, certainly a guy that, though, has been up and down the waiver wire because of that Brandon Jacobs injury. He is the guy that's been picked up most on CBSSports.com. Let's talk about another situation, and that's Warwick Dunn, Jarius Norwood. Bobby Petrino came out and said that he is going to start giving Jarius Norwood the ball more. Is this a scene here where we may see people on their fantasy rosters sitting Warwick Dunn and starting Jarius Norwood?
Well, I think, Jason, if you're looking at both Falcons guys, you probably don't have a very good fantasy team because, as we know with the Falcons, they're going to struggle this year without Michael Vick. Teams are going to focus on that very good running game in previous years. Take those guys away because you want Joey Harrington to beat you. So if you're looking at, if you have to start Dunn, if you have to start Norwood, you're probably in trouble. If you need to start one of the two, obviously you lean towards Norwood because of the talent, because Warwick Dunn coming off of the back surgery from the offseason. He's still not going to be 100% as tough as he is and playing through this. But I would stay away from both guys in terms of starters. If you're looking at depth, maybe some trade bait, Norwood is the guy that's going to have more potential as the year goes on because this team, as we all know, is going to be building for the future.
And speaking of trade bait, a guy that your buddy down there, Dave Richard, talked about trading, that's Randy Moss, but that's something you can see on CBSSports.com. Let's talk about other receivers here. Josh McCown, he had a good thing going with Ronald Curry in Week 1. Sean McDonald, he had a touchdown and 90 yards receiving from John Kitna in Oakland for the Lions. And Antoine Randall had a huge game. But, Jamey, in one of your articles, you say it's the guy to stay away from. Why?
Well, I think what you see from Randall is a couple things. The Dolphins tried to take away Santana Moss and Chris Cooley. They did a good job of that, so that left Randall open. Take away 54 yards of his production because that was Jason Taylor knockdown that just happened to land in Randall's lap. So I think, you look at the production there. And then you're talking about week in, week out, can you really count on Randall to be a quality fantasy wide receiver for you when you have Jason Campbell as a quarterback? We know they're going to run the ball with Clinton Portis and Liddell Betts. And again, Cooley is still there. Moss is still there. So I think Randall could be a guy you might want to add if he keeps this up 2-3 weeks in. But right now, I just don't think. I think it's more of a flash in the pan than anything else.
Maybe a guy to put on your roster as far as hope he does it 2-3 weeks in, put him on the bench for now. You also mentioned Chris Cooley, a guy that they gave a big contract. There's a reason for that, so that's definitely one of the issues there. All right, let's get to another receiver that may be a move maker, but I'm not sure about this one. Nate Burleson, he's going to step in for DJ Hackett as the starter who's out with a high ankle sprain. Any value there in your opinion?
Well, I actually like Burleson. I drafted him very late in some leagues simply because last year he was dealing with some injuries. He really didn't talk a lot about it, but he was banged up most of the year. We know he was very good in Minnesota. I like the fact now that Deion Branch being the number one, not a very proven wide receiver, so Matt Hasselbeck needs someone to throw to. You'll still see Bobby Engram involved in the mix. I like what Marcus Pollard did Week 1 in his first game as a tight end for the Seahawks. We know it's John Alexander's show. And again, Deion Branch will be back. He's not going to get shut out for a second week and maybe not get shut out ever again. So I think you'll see the ball be spread out a little bit, among the receivers without DJ Hackett there. So I think if you're looking at a guy, Burleson is the guy to pick up of the bunch. But again, Engram will be in the mix, and they still have some weapons on the team to use as well.
And man, Jamey, it seems like eras ago that Bobby Engram was catching passes from Kerry Collins at Penn State. But he's still in the NFL. He's still in the mix. So we'll see what happens there. All right, one other thing here. Let's get to some other injuries to watch out for as we talk about move makers here. And there are some running backs. There are a couple quarterbacks. Carnell Williams, the Bucs are insisting his ribs are not cracked, but he is week to week. Chester Taylor with the hip injury. Obviously, to watch out there to see what's going on in that situation. But with Chad Pennington and Steve McNair, those are two quarterbacks that if they don't play, Jamey, what does that do for people who have guys on the Jets and guys on the Ravens like Derek Mason, like Willis McGahee?
Well, we'll start with McGahee because he's got a great history against the Jets. You know, he's owned them when he was in Buffalo. I think looking at what McGahee did in the Monday night game, you're a little disappointed because you wanted to see him sort of come out and establish himself as the guy against a suspect Bengals defense. You know, the Bengals sort of surprised a lot of people. But I think you're looking at, McGahee should still be started. You know, when you're looking at Todd Heap, could be a young quarterback's best friend is a tight end. So I think there's, no reason to worry there. And then you're talking about, the receivers who struggled a little bit for the Ravens. When you look at the Jets, Lavernius Cole still played well with a banged-up Pennington, and against a good Patriot secondary. So I still think you start him, but maybe you look at other ways in terms of Kotchery. And Thomas Jones, not a very good play this week against the Ravens.
No, of course not. Nobody running the ball does a very good job usually against the Ravens. We saw that with Rudy Johnson. All right, Jamey, thank you very much. It's Move Makers. We'll see you later this week. And, of course, we can read all your articles on CBSSports.com.
Jason, I'm looking forward to seeing you next week in New York.
Yes, sir. It should be a good time. We'll catch up on that dinner that you owe me. Anyway, folks, that'll do it for Move Makers here following Week 1. But to see what came out of who's hot, who's not, and or to see stardom, sit 'em, keep it connected right here to CBSSports.com. For Jamey Eisenberg, I'm Jason Horowitz. Take care.